were speculating about, or building models of, the house of tomorrow, the car of tomorrow, or the workplace of tomorrow. At expositions and fairs around the globe, exhibits forecast a coming day when everything would be faster, cheaper, cleaner, easier, and just altogether more wonderful. Science would solve everything, prosperity would grow indefinitely, and people would thrive. In the spirit of that time, the audacity and the unwavering confidence, John F. Kennedy told the world of plans to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. The speech he gave in September 1962, announcing that goal, spent a good amount of time justifying the expense and explaining the urgency. But nowhere in it was there even a hint that it might not be possible. He said, in part, "But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that of the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this and do it right and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold." Think of the optimism. Jet planes were only a few years old. People were still alive who knew the Wright brothers. And this man was saying we were going to the moon in a rocket ship made of metals we hadn't even invented. And you know what? We did. As the Jim Lovell character in the movie Apollo 13 said, "From now on, we live in a world where man has walked on the moon. And it's not a miracle. We just decided to go." That mindset, "why don't we decide what kind of world we want to live in and then make it?" permeated our collective consciousness for a long time. People overwhelmingly believed the future would be better, and they were right. They may have missed on specifics, such as each of us owning a personal jetpack and a flying car, but in general we're dead on. The present is better than the past. Not just a little better, but gloriously and fantastically better. Whether you are rich or poor, live in the developed world or the developing world, life today is better and easier than it was a century ago by virtually any measure. Life expectancy, infant mortality, disease, hours of leisure, access to education, equality, self-rule, opportunity, rule of law, wealth, comfort, technology, access to information, medical care, and on and on. I am not saying we live in a utopia. I am not ignoring that the world is full of extreme and unacceptable want and misery. But I am making a simple statement that life is better now than it has ever been. The optimists, thus far, have been right. We have, in fact, envisioned a better world and have made it happen. Why should we expect that to change? And yet, against all reason, starting in the 1970s, our collective optimism faltered. Through some perfect storm of wars, downturns, and disasters, the once sunny outlook turned dark. The cadence and view of life changed, and people began to think the future was not going to be better than the past. Analysts declared each successive generation might be the first to have a lower standard of living than their parents. Scarcity was the new watchword as the focus turned to all the problems of the future, not all the possibilities. Energy depletion, pollution, landfills, and overpopulation, ozone holes, CFCs, and global warming, mass extinction, deforestation, dead zones in oceans, and on and on and on. The world indeed has all sorts of challenges ahead. Some will be extremely difficult to overcome. But the present is manifestly better than the past because of all the people who expected it to be so, and therefore got up early and worked hard to make it so. Hey, someone has to discover penicillin. It might as well be me. Someone has to sequence DNA, cure polio.